It was an emotional weekend for people whose lives were touched by the Ideal Maternity Home in Chester. Hundreds returned to the South Shore community to visit old friends, meet some new ones, and remember the Butterbox babies who died at the home. With a look back at the reunion, here's Daryl McIntyre.
Today, we meet here in the village of Chester to pray for all of the babies of the Ideal Maternity Home and for their families, both birth and adoptive, and for those whose lives have been touched by this part of history.
This was the emotional end to an emotional weekend, a weekend that saw hundreds of people come together from across Canada and the United States, all with a common bond in a home that's become infamous as the birth and death place of the Butterbox babies. Literally hundreds of children were born at the Ideal Maternity Home in East Chester. The most infamous today are the ones who died of neglect and malnutrition. But hundreds more survived their stays at the home and were adopted, sold, or farmed out to people across the continent. Many of them are now searching for their birth families, and for some, the search ended here this weekend. Sharon Knight is one.
Jim and I spoke to each other for the first time on the 13th of April. We didn't know at that time that we were brother and sister, but we agreed to exchange photographs and keep in touch. With the exception of my children, there has never been anyone in my life who shared my blood. When I stand and look into the face of the man who is my brother, what will I feel?
For others, though, the search continues.
It's things that you want to know. You know, every time I go to the doctor and fill out a medical form, I have to write adopted, don't know, and I'd like to know.
In fact, many who turned out for this weekend's reunion came hoping to make a connection, even if that connection was only seeing a family resemblance in the crowd. That desperation is all that's left for some whose lives started at the Ideal Maternity Home, because so many of the adoptions here were done quietly, secretly, even illegally.
I want to get to records.
Still, with every year that passes, with each book, play, and movie that's written about the home, more and more survivors come forward, and the search gets a little easier.
Now we sort of have a network, and more people keep finding out about it.
Hey.
Eileen Steinhauer has tracked down and met most of her natural family over the past few years, but she still remembers the double shock of finding out not only that she was adopted, but that she was adopted from a home with a dark history.
Actually, I had to go to bed for a couple of days. I would read the book, and I would just feel so overcome with emotion. It sort of encompassed my life for several days. Well, for a long time, but for the first week or so, I just was in shock. I couldn't believe that I'd finally found my roots, my past, and uncovered that I came from such a horrible place. And I was very grateful to be alive after I read the book. I could have been in a butterbox.
But it was frightening that everything that was in the book transpired. It's a little unnerving. And trying to put yourself in that position, it doesn't seem real. It seems so far-fetched.
You feel lucky?
Oh, very definitely I'm lucky.
In fact, lucky is how all the survivors at this weekend's reunion describe themselves, not only because they lived through an experience others didn't, but because for many, coming together to erect a monument has helped fill a void.
As we find more of the people from the Ideal Maternity Home, I feel like they're my brothers, they're my sisters. We have such an incredible bond and closeness. We just meet each other after like a few minutes, and we just feel like family. It's wonderful, and to see this memorial so people don't forget.
Daryl McIntyre, CBC News, East Chester.
Coming up next on First Edition.